Hi, everybody. I am Andra Annette here from Healing with the Inside Out, and I'm with my co-host, CJC Boyd. And today we want to talk about holding space, but not to the point where it over encompasses who you are as a person. Because we do show up for family and we do have to hold space because things are going to happen throughout our lives. It's inevitable. Nobody has a good day every day, even though I tell myself that every morning. Today's going to be the best day of my life, right? And, miraculous and mysterious things are coming to me. You can say that, but life happens on life's terms. It's not always on Andra's terms or CJ's terms. So sometimes we tend to carry the burdens of everybody because as women, that's what we do. We shoulder everything. And sometimes that can be overwhelming and we internalize it. So I know that I've gone through so many different situations where I would carry everything and then be overwhelmed and angry and say, "Oh my God, I need a break, cut it out, enough already." And if I had just set boundaries and say, okay, or learn to walk away and hold space for myself in the middle of that, I would have been okay because it's okay to hold space for other people, but we do have to give ourselves that same joy and that same peace and walk away when it's causing harm to ourselves, and we don't.
I'm just sitting here laughing because I feel like this message is meant for me this morning. I think that what's landing for me is, we hold space, and especially if we're moms too, we hold space for every child and everything that they got going on. And I was just thinking this morning, my youngest son is 22. He's in the Air Force. He's in the military. It was 5:21 my time, 6:21 his time. Just got off shift and he's like FaceTiming me. And I was like jolted awake by this FaceTime. And I'm like, I should just deny it and say, no, I'm sleeping. I'll call you when I get up. But I didn't. And I never do. And I'm always like, I feel like I'm at everybody's beck and call. But then when it's something that I say I'm going to do for myself, if something else comes up, it's like, oh, it's not that big a deal. It's no biggie. I'll just go do that thing. And then, like you said, it manifests in our bodies and things for us that we can't quite figure out how to cope with it, or we sit and go, how the hell did this happen? What made this happen? And as you were talking, it's like those things make that happen in my body when I don't hold space for myself. And I think it's very important for us as women, like you said, we hold space and we do things for everybody else, but we don't really do the thing. We give lip service to saying, yes, I'm going to do self-care. Yes, I'm going to love myself. Yes, I'm going to go ground today. But then it's like, what's the first thing that we let go? The things we do for ourselves if something else comes up.
I agree. And I could see as a parent, when you get a call at that hour, you
Yeah,
are
your
going,
card is like,
you wonder if everything's okay, and if you didn't take that call thinking that things
then
were
what?
okay and something happened, how would you deal with that? Because we manipulate ourselves in those situations
Mm-hmm.
because a good parent would do this and a bad parent would do this. But that's really what the world teaches us. And I probably would have answered that call and said, it's 5:30 in the morning. You okay? Yeah, good. I'll talk to you later, and hung up. And and kind of set boundaries, but in a loving way, because we don't set boundaries for ourselves. And there's been so many times that I've shouldered what other people are going through. And I have friends that sometimes need to talk and they're full of negative energy. And allowing that energy into our space decreases our energy. And we don't think it does, but it zaps. I mean, I have friends that sometimes I'm with them and we go out to have a nice day, and the whole day is surrounded by, you know, everything that's going wrong in their life and no positivity. And even though we may have not done anything tiring, I come home exhausted. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like overwhelmed. So I need to guard that space for myself now because I know where that leads me. It did put
Right.
me in a very sick body because, all those feelings that we have and those emotions that we carry, does cause stress in our lives and it does impact our physical self. The emotional and the physical are very connected, and that's what drains us and leads to that sickness. So I can love you to death, but do I want to be sick
Right,
over loving you? No.
right. No,
There's a very, because there's got to be an in between where somewhere I see myself. Today on the train, I did Sandy Forrest's meditation, and I love her. And it was all about saying, I love you. You know, I love me. I love myself. I love myself. Because it reminds you to have that like white light energy where you're bringing love in and then you can share it. So I do these little crazy things for myself. If people ever heard some of the things that these little mantras I do, they'd be like, what is she doing? But I don't care because it sets my tone for the day. And it does help me set boundaries. Because when someone like you know how a dog's hair goes up on their back? I get that kind of feeling when people ask me to do certain things and I know that it sounds like a simple task, but it's going to cut a lot of time out of my day. And the hair starts going up on my back and saying, "Don't do it, Andra. Say no, say no." And sometimes out of love, I'll say yes. And then as I walk away, I'll say, "Why did you say yes? You know you don't want to do this. You know how much time this is going to take you and you don't have another minute." So we do we do have to reel ourselves in sometimes because the biggest complaint I hear from most people is they don't have enough time.
yeah,
But so much of our time is given to other people, other people's projects, other people's emotions, other people's, problems that they're going through. And if we just were more protective of that time we gave to that, we'd have all the time in the world.
yeah. And I think too, when we're setting boundaries with other people, when we're leading by example, by, supporting ourselves and keeping good control over our own energy, it's kind of like a light switch for other people too. Yes, of course, when you say no to somebody, when you always said yes, they're instantly going to be mad. They go, "What's wrong with you? Why are you doing that? You're mean, whatever." But when they start seeing you do that and they start seeing how lit up you are and how that makes you feel, and that's leading by example, showing them that they can do that too. And I think, a lot of us are out here talking about energy, but most people don't get the true connection of where we give our energy and what it produces inside of our bodies. I never had that connection. I'll be straight up honest. Probably a lot of the conversations that you and I have has made me realize that more so than anything, like why illness shows up in our body and why we have to really listen to what our body is telling us. And the perfect example is when you said when somebody asks you to do something and those hairs stand up on your arm or the back of your neck, it's like we need to listen to our bodies. And I will be the first to admit that I'm getting better at it, but I've not been one to be like, okay, what is this trying to tell me?
It's definitely a process and it's an ongoing process. Like even I think I was on a call with a therapist. We were doing a show and I listened back to it and I realized how bad I sounded that like I have trouble staying in the now. But I've always, since I was a child, my mind was always racing so fast. And I was always thinking about what I was doing next. And I thought that was just the human thing. But when I started learning to just be where I was, it was like the hardest thing I ever did. And I struggle with it daily, you know, but we have to, it's about releasing some of that negative so we can make more room because the universe is just like energy. It's like just full of energy and we attract to us what we put out there. Just like those people that are hoarders and clutters. I didn't say that right. They
I
they don't they don't have any space to invite new and better because they fill their homes with all this clutter. And that's sending a message to the universe that you're full, you
Yeah,
know?
that you can't get anything else. There's no room for anything else that's good or yeah.
because
that's
you,
a good
but
that's a good
it's,
analogy though.
but it's true. Like, so, like, even, I talk about that woman all the time because I've learned so much from her. Like, we can want, right? Everybody wants better things, good things. But when you come from a place of need, you're
Mhm.
in that get mindset, not in
Yep.
that give mindset. And that's lack. That's not wealth. You're in lack. You can't get to lack and wealth. So you can't get to, like Mary Morrissey always says, you can't get to channel 12 when you're always at channel 8, right? So and I didn't get that. And so when you're always I want, you're in lack, like you don't have what you need to have now. And we all have what we need, right? But I have trouble saying no. So as a rule, I just don't say the word no. So that way I don't feel guilty when people ask me to do something and I get those hairs in the back of my neck. I say, well, I'd really like to, but I think I have a previous commitment. And they don't have to know that it's a commitment to myself that I want to
Right.
sit with a good book or something. Or let me think about it and I'll get back to you. Because often those people that are always draining your energy and asking you to do things for them are going to go if they really just don't want to do it themselves. Because some people
Find somebody else.
multitask and get other people to do everything for them. There are people like that too, right? Who just don't want to do stuff for themselves. So usually when you tell them, let me think about it and I'll get back to you, they'll have found someone else,
Right.
and 2 days later, hey, did you ever find someone to help you with that project you were working on? Oh, yeah, yeah, I did. Or, I had to do it myself. Oh, but it must have come
Oh,
out great. Good for you. Right. So, so you don't necessarily have to say no, but you do have to guard yourself. Even I find that working online, there's so many people in my inbox all the time, so many emails, you sign up for one thing or you agree to go to someone's event to support them, and now you're on their lifelong email list and you're getting 10 emails every day from 100 people, and it's a lot to go through. And I said, why should I have to go through this? So I went through my email the other day, just unsubscribe, 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 unsubscribe. And that's it. I said, I'm done, but I'll only check my emails now. Like sometimes someone will say at like 5 o'clock, hello, are you there? And I'll see that they left me this long message all day. Or that someone will leave me a really long message and I'll be like, pick up the phone. Why would you leave me that long message?
right.
So I'm going to reset my message. If your message is important to me, these are the times I ask and get, answer and get back to calls. If it's super important, call back at those times,
Right.
right? I'm going to answer those messages once a day at a given time because all of that stuff takes time and it takes training. And especially if you're trying to work on something that's important to you. By the time you get through all those messages, an hour or so has gone by.
And that drains your energy. And then that thing you were lit up to do and excited to be, you know, embarking on, you're like, now I don't want to do it because I just spent an hour going through messages that don't mean anything. It's the same thing. I looked at my email messages the other day. It's like you have 10,632 emails. I'm like, how does that happen? So that's the same thing. I just went through and deleted like, 100 of them at a time. And it's like, that felt so good to be able to do that and not feel guilty, like, oh, I didn't read that. So there are certain ones that I'm like, I know I wanted the information when you originally gave it to me, but that wasn't my permission slip for you to inundate me with all this crap that I'm never going to read. So I think it's very important that's one of the things too, as far as guarding our energy is emails, texts, messages that are just slime, cold pitch, just to get rid of them because we don't realize that when those pile on and we keep taking those on, that drains our energy as well.
I don't even open them anymore. And, I do work online and I interviewed Dan Harrison yesterday. And
Get rid of that.
I listen, I just love him. And I was having a really hard time when I came online because I couldn't be that salesy, sleazy person. So he's all about authentic sales and giving value first. And that's kind of what made me fall in love with selling again. I mean, I worked as a sales girl when I was a kid, but the idea of sitting in someone's messages all day and now I know what they need, what I want, but does that mean some of the messages I get, they're not, hey, Andra, how you doing? I see you're a coach. What are you struggling with? Is there a way I can help? This is what I do. They're not being forward and real. They're saying, I can get you 15, 30 calls and whatever. And they don't even know you. And
Right.
to me, that's insulting. Like, you don't know me. You don't know my business. You don't know what I want. But I interviewed him last night, and he's so humble and so easygoing, you know? And I was just telling him, I said, I admire you, like the way you do things and the way you do business. And when he when he first came online, like he was talking about how corrupt the system is. Like he worked in financial. He was a certified financial planner. And when you hear him talk about it, it's like 70% of your earnings is going to the government.
Hmm.
And he was like, "Oh, I got to do something different." and,
That's
and
not right.
yeah, and he was in debt, and he said that there was so much loathing and stuff. And he's the one that introduced me to that book I told you about, Course in Miracles, and it really changed my perspective. And he was saying last night that we're all connected, and he said sometimes I'm doing something for someone over here,
Mhm.
that I'm just giving value, and I'll get something over here. And he said, some people might not see the connection. He said, but I've learned to connect it all. And when you start seeing how all of these things that are surrounding us in life are all connected to us and how we show up in energy, it just changes the way you feel about giving so much of your energy away.
Yeah, I love to like when it triggered me when you said you're doing something for someone over here and you know that you're going to get something back over here. But a lot of times people are in this industry and they're like, I'm going to do this and it's going to come back to me tenfold. They're expecting that monetarily thing when in reality, if you're just giving value from your heart and you genuinely just want to help people, it comes back to you in ways that maybe aren't isn't necessarily monetary, but it fulfills you and it makes your soul feel good. And I think, a lot of times when I have conversations with women, I'm like, let's just jump on a call. We'll just brainstorm. They're like, no, 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 you want to sell me? I'm like, no, I genuinely just want to have a conversation and find out what you want and what you need because it's not one size fits all. Everybody doesn't need what I have, and that's not what I'm about. It's about helping you figure out what it is that you want and meeting you where you are. And most times when I get on those calls with people, they're like, dang, you really are different. You didn't try to sell me once. I'm like, that was not my intention. I told you my intention straight up in the beginning of the call. And I think when you really concentrate on coming from a space of your heart, that's a good way to set boundaries too and not like drain your energy trying to help or save or heal every single person that comes to you and goes, I just want to pick your brain or I want you to help me with this. It's like, no, this person I really see struggling and I know that I can ask the questions that's going to make her think on a different level.
Yeah. But you don't do over here because you expect over here. And I think that's what a lot of people uh, miss.
Yeah.
They're doing with the intention of getting. So you may be doing over here and not see how what you got over here is connected, but you don't do to
Do
get.
it for that thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't.
It
And a
just
lot
makes
of
me,
times,
yeah.
when I'm on calls with people, I get the same thing because everybody out there is trying to sell something, and I offer free calls to everybody in my group, and a lot of them won't even get on a call because they think I'm going to sell something, and I'm like, suit yourself, stay out here and suffer.
Yeah.
But spoke to a woman the other day, and it was like a half an hour, and she's been in all these programs and there are people out there that will sell you a program knowing it's not what you need to bring you to another program, to another program, to another program. So she said, I've been in all these programs and I failed. And I said, well, I want to be honest with you. Until you start doing with that inner work, I said, you're always going to come back to where you are now. I said, because after talking to you, you clearly know that you're an emotional eater and you don't want to deal with those emotions. And I said, until you do, you're going to wind up back where you are. So I said, I don't advise you join any program. I said, I have something free over here that can help you with the emotional eating. And I advise you to sit in there and stay there until you're ready to work, through those feelings. And I told her honestly, I said, I didn't like myself. I was in a place where I didn't like who I was, the things that I had done, and I hadn't made peace with myself yet. I said, and it
Yeah.
wasn't until I did that all that weight came off. I said, because I wasn't carrying those burdens. And I said, those burdens were my weight. Those were the feelings I were eating. I said, and
Yep.
I would have never put it together until afterwards. I said, sometimes we're right where we need to be and we just don't realize it. I said, so you're in a very good place. I said, because the only place you can go is forward, you know?
Yeah. I think it's funny how, and I've been guilty of this too, is you think that there's a program that's gonna, flip that switch for you. There's this thing that's gonna help you, that's gonna make the difference and make the change. And a lot of times people go into these programs and they pay all this money and then they don't do the work that the program is like, you might as well have just taken your money out in the back barbecue pit and lit it on fire. And what's really coming in for me is that every single thing that we need, and I'm not saying, coaches aren't important, but every single thing that you need is within you. It's a really good coach who asks the right questions that makes
Pulls it
those
out.
things come out of you,
Mm-hmm.
instead of searching for something that's going to be the band-aid fix or the, instant gratification. Like really stop and think about yourself. And this kind of ties back to the whole holding boundaries. If I'm not willing to take the time to work on myself and hold boundaries and say no to other things and really dig deep and figure out what is bothering me, what's holding me back, what's, causing angst within me, there's no way in hell that I can help somebody else find that for themselves.
No. And and there are some people that just can't be helped too. There are some people that enjoy being unhappy,
Miserable.
and that has become their whole MO, and they wouldn't know what to do with happiness. And that's part of their self-sabotage. I was that person at a time too.
I was
So
too.
I
Yep.
know that role. But after working in health for, oh God, 40 plus years, what do you say to the diabetic who just keeps coming in for, new amputations that you haven't said before to make that finally click? So the first one they were really afraid of, but then after they had it, they were like, "Oh, it's not a
No
big
big deal.
deal," and and eight toes in, or so. They have to be ready to make that change, and a lot of people, um, having diabetes doesn't mean you can't have sweets. It's really about that balance too, So people have, I think I told you that I applied for a TED Talk, and the guy said, "What's in the questionnaire?" It said something new you want to talk about, and I said health because whatever they're talking about out here is anything but right. So my friend said health isn't new. I said it is if you're talking out here. I said because none of these people are saying anything that's really healthy. They'll give you just little pieces to they're playing to your sickness, not to your health. They're saying, what's hurting you. They're playing to those pain points to drag you in. But that doesn't mean they identify with it. There are people out there that nutritionists or mindset coaches or business coaches that have really never been in the situation that they're helping someone get to. You know, there are financial people helping with financial planning that have never worked in finance. It's just something they think they're good at, and they're out there helping people.
Right.
Maybe
And
they
and I think the online space is a good thing because you can reach a lot of people, but I also, in some instances, it's a really bad thing because there are people without credentials who are putting themselves out there saying that they can help you do X, Y, and Z when they don't have a clue. And like you said, they've not experienced any of the things. So I think it's important for people to do their due diligence and really
yes.
feel with your gut too. Like if you're talking to somebody and you get those hairs on the back of your neck or your arm is like, you really have to ask yourself those questions. And
But you have to ask them those questions too, because if someone
exactly.
is legitimate online, they are going to give you like some guarantee. So whether that is if you show up and you do the work, you will get this result. Maybe that's the only guarantee, but or if you do X, Y, and Z, you'll have a better idea of how to get out of debt. But there should be something ironclad that you're going to go through. Not that you're paying $3,000 or $5,000 for a program and you don't know what
What the
you're coming
result
out
is.
of that or
Right,
or anything. You
right.
know, because support comes in different ways. Some people, like so, there's a lot of people out there that want to lose weight that want to lose 20 pounds and they probably don't really need that 20 pounds, like from a health perspective. It might be 5 or 10 from mine, and but that's what they want. But they probably just need the motivation or the support. It's really not that they don't know how to eat and stuff. And some people, when you talk to them, because there's so much negativity out there about what health really is, they think they don't have what it takes, but they already know what's healthy. They're already doing all those things. They just need a cheerleader to cheer them on. And sometimes that could be a very expensive cheerleader. But but it's the guidance and the support. I mean, when I was on that journey, I was in groups of people that wanted the same thing because I needed to hear that every day and I didn't have that at home. So
Yeah,
I needed it. So I had my ass in there every day listening to what other people were doing just to get that motivation to do it because that's what works. You need that. Otherwise, day two, I would have been like, shit, this is hard, you know. But you need that. You need to be around positive, like-minded people.
I agree.
I see somebody's trying to get my attention. That doesn't mean there's an emergency or anything, but I am at work. I have the kind of job that most people wish for. If there's no emergency, then I don't have to respond, right? So that's pretty cool, right? But if there's an emergency, all shit breaks loose and I gotta respond quickly. So yeah, this is really, I think, going to help a lot of people out there that are holding space for other people and really just not focusing on that inner self. So I think there's always that voice inside of us that's saying, don't do it, or I need, or I'm tired. Even those little cues, I'm tired, I feel drained, I need another cup of coffee, and it's only 8:30 or 9 o'clock. That's kind of telling you either you got a coffee addiction or you need more sleep or something. But you have to listen to those little cues because the body is always telling you what you need. We choose not to listen to it until we hit a brick wall and we
And we
say,
have no other.
yeah. And we have to learn to step back from things sometimes. And that's okay. And you can, even like people that want more, you could totally be grateful for what you have now and still want more in life. That doesn't mean that you're not grateful. You can totally love and support people and um need your time and set boundaries. Listen, I love you, I support you, but nope, sorry, I got to be somewhere in 10 minutes. You know? Well, I
Yeah, I
really
agree.
need to talk. Okay, go. You got to. You know, you
Yeah,
have to do that for yourself.
for yourself. Yeah. Whew, this is a big topic.
Yeah. So I think that's enough from us today on healing from the inside out. And it's always a pleasure to have you and get your feedback because I think that we do balance each other. And I think friends are an important part of that. Like I can sense when something's off in you. I know you can sense when something's off in me, but like my eyebrows are burning, you know. And and I think that's good. And I think that's why people hire coaches. I think that's what support is really, really about. And uh, do I hire mentors? I do. Um, do I have I ever hired a coach online? Absolutely. Some were good, some were just not worth the money I paid. But it's a learning process. And it taught me to say, what is the return on investment in here? What can, I need some guarantee. Oh, you don't come with a guarantee, then I'm sorry. You
Yeah.
know,
And I think
um,
all those situations help build your trust in yourself and help build that resilience to hold those boundaries and to really figure out what it is that you need, going through those situations. And when you're in it in the moment, it's like, yeah, that really sucked and that's horrible. But then it's like, what was the lesson that was meant to teach me? So from here going forward, I can do things differently and really be the best me.
I think that's great. I think that's true. So we're gonna sign off for today, guys. Thank you so much for showing up for this week's session of Healing from the Inside Out. I'm sorry about the darkness in here.
It,
And
it looks
ha
good on this end.
have a great day, guys.